Welcome back to Lit versus Genre, everybody. I am Steve.
And I'm Jeff.
And Jeff, we have made it to the end.
Ooh,
This is the end, my
it
friend.
is. It is.
How are you
So they
feeling?
say.
How are you feeling?
Uh, we started to talk about this like right before the recording began. So I'm feeling a lot of things. First, I want to say thank you to people for waiting for this. I know that a lot of people came out with their thoughts like right away, and we're a couple days behind that. So first, gratitude is how I'm feeling. The people are waiting to view this, and I look forward to hearing people's responses.
Yeah.
Two,
I
I,
was road
I felt,
tripping, y'all. It's
yeah.
on me. It's my fault. I was massively road tripping, but I'm
Well,
happy
I
to
mean,
be
it's
here
pretty
now.
impressive. I mean, I mean, you're doing full days of driving, so holidays, coordinating two schedules, right? But I feel like I was in a really interesting place with how I felt about this episode, which I'm happy to. It's going to take me just a couple minutes to describe. So if you're looking for a quick answer, I don't have one, so I can wait to say all that. Or if you want to
Let me
say
put
something
this out
first, I
there,
can
and
do it.
then I'm gonna give you the floor.
Do it.
My favorite episode.
Well, you're trying to get that spit take. That's
I
you
think
see
I,
this, everybody.
I think
You
I
see what you
got
got to
it.
work with here.
I think I got it. I think it happened.
Ah, okay. This wasn't a new mic that I just got because of the comment
Proceed.
saying Jeff, that being scratchy. I would have just spit all over it. Um, so of course it was. Well, so okay, so actually you and I aren't as far off as I might have thought. So what happened to me was I watched it. The beginning I was like, huh? And the end I was kind of like, huh? But otherwise I was like, meh. So when I finished the last episode, mainly I felt relief that it was over. Like, I've made it through
Hmm.
this season. I was like, it's done. I mean, don't get me wrong, we could talk about how the show likely needed more episodes, so on and so forth, right? But
Hmm.
just in terms of this journey as it has been, there was relief to be done with it. But then I wanted to, especially since we had a couple extra days, I wanted to see how other people felt. I try to information collect so I can be bringing different viewpoints to the table beyond my own. And I was a little surprised that I kept reading on places or in YouTube comments or videos that they really didn't like the last episode because to me it just felt like meh, in the way a lot of other episodes had felt. This didn't feel like a big divergence to me. So I really sat down and was like, okay, why is this the episode? Why is this the straw that broke the camel back? And obviously, I think it comes down to it being the end and people like waiting to
Hmm.
see what would happen. But I'll get into my theories and what I found. But yeah, so I'm not actually as far from you as perhaps you might have expected. Maybe.
Yeah, I'll just say that this was like the most entertaining for me. Like this is the one that
Ooh.
I was the least bored during,
Mm.
right?
Okay.
Like the
Okay.
things like it had a clock, it had a forward momentum, it
Mm.
had
Yep.
like uh stakes again that were pretty
Yeah.
clear the whole time. It
Yeah.
had
Yeah.
a lead character being forced to make a choice. It had
Mhm.
just like things that kept me involved. So I've also been kind of
Right.
equally interested in looking like other people's takes on it and people be like I think like Daniel Green, who's I always watch, and he's
Mhm.
like been pretty even handed about the whole thing. Was
Yep.
like this was the worst episode, and I was like this was clearly the best episode. I don't like this was like by any metric that's not
Yeah.
like oh am I judging it by some wheel of time metric that I don't get. And don't get me wrong, there was like cheesy
Hey.
stuff in this episode. There was stuff that didn't make sense. There's like I feel like a lot of where it goes wrong is where they're shortcutting things, right? Like where they have to
Yeah.
where it just feels like sloppy. Like them being able to like
Mm.
look back in both directions through the blight and be like, "Oh, look, there's a big battle happening there back where we came from." And then turn the other way and then be able to look the other way and go, "Oh, and here's a big hole over here." It's like,
Yeah.
"No, you couldn't see anything in there." It was like so like they
Right.
do like a lot of like shortcutting stuff, but again, that's like dumb plot hole things that usually I don't
Yeah.
care about if I feel like the emotional stuff is lived in. And
Right.
I didn't feel
Right.
like that the whole episode, but like I was definitely more entertained. This was like the first one where I was
So
like
interesting.
not looking at my watch at parts of it, like not like I was like with it
Mhm.
all the way through.
I mean, obviously, we do still have a divergence, right? Because I was not feeling that.
Mm.
But that's fascinating to hear, and I love it. I mean, what could be better than so many fans changing their mind. And you'd be like, no, this is it. This is the episode, right? This is the good one. So,
This is the one that like
uh,
would maybe get me to
mm,
watch a season two. Like this was the first one I felt like it
interesting.
had like a real
Interesting.
story, it had like real
Hmm.
momentum, it had like
Hmm.
something going on in it. And again, maybe again it's me comparing to like how much I hated the end of the book Eye of the World, where I just thought it was like a total disaster. And I was like,
Yeah.
well, and if anything, I feel like the problem of the show, and this is me maybe being a psycho, and everybody tell me down below in the comments how big
We'll
a
find out.
psycho I am while you're
Right.
jamming on that subscribe button. So while you're
Of
doing
course.
that, jam on the subscribe button. But like, I think the problem with the show was the parts where they tried to go along with the book stuff, and the things where they diverted I am
Yeah.
mainly for. And I think like the sloppiness that we've talked about,
Hmm.
was going to happen either way. If they made a big change or if they played it totally close to the book, the sloppiness was just going to be there. Maybe that's a product of like they didn't have enough episodes, maybe it was
Right.
something else. But I feel like they were like, we have to do the weird end
Hmm.
of this book, and I think they did that a lot better than the book. Like I was way more interested
Hmm.
in the eye and like what's going
Hmm.
on there and the dilemma that they set up there at the end of it than like anything that
Right.
happened in the book. So like I don't know. I
Yeah.
was like, I wouldn't have done this. I would have radically changed the story a lot
Yes.
more than they did.
Yes.
But like, it's
Uh,
such a fascinating thing that they did where they're like, yeah, maybe pleasing no masters, or I don't know, maybe we need to watch a few more videos of like the non-book
yeah.
people and how they reacted. But it was like, do it.
Non-book seemed okay from my research. It seemed like, oh, it's kind of weird, but yeah, let's, keep going for another
Hmm.
season, right?
Interesting.
In
Interesting.
limited research, limited research.
Right. Right. Right.
Um, but you were going to say something else?
Oh yeah, just that it is such a funny mix of like what things we are going to keep from
Yeah.
the book, what things we're not. And it felt like that they were like, how do we make this book one work while keeping
Mm,
like intact the kind of general arc of book one, which I would have
yeah.
gone, forget the general arc of book one because it's nonsense. Like, and stay more maybe true to other parts of. I haven't read the
Later
rest of the books,
books.
but yeah, like what's gonna
Yeah.
happen later books, or not mess with that core
Hmm.
and just eject this weird journey and weird climax to the end of book one,
Yeah.
which they didn't. I felt like they felt more like a need to hew to that general outline. And then, like, a lot of their changes then kind of made sense to me in trying to find a way to make that plot work.
Right. And maybe that's why I had the reaction I did when people were like, this terrible, like I can't believe this was the ending, and stuff like I was already like, everybody, the ending, the first book is kind of shaky at best. Anyway, I mean, I expecting that great end, is part of I think what made some people be like, no, this doesn't work for me. Um, Whereas I wasn't as surprised, I think, by that, which is, I already know they're working with someone that's tough to handle. So, do I think they did it better? Well, let's get into some stuff that's tied to that. So,
All right.
um, I hear you on your points. I am very interested to dig into what you said about, stakes and there being choices. And I thought the choice presented to Rand was an interesting one and the way he gets out of it. But just to kind of back up a little bit in terms of some of this digging, it sounds like both of us were doing to figure out, like what was it that made people flip? What was it about, this episode that got people to go, no, like no more. I won't do this anymore. Because I was really surprised. As you said, Dana Green's been mostly positive. He was more negative, and the comments supported him. I was expecting to scroll down and the comments be like, no, it's great, it's amazing. And I'm wondering if how much of this is people were giving leeway to certain plot points, like the whole Stefan arc, or even what we saw in episode 6 with the Moraine arc, thinking that there will be, a payoff, there will be a reason why we invested so much time in only 8 episodes to these things.
Mm,
But it'll, be justified by the end. And it just sort of wasn't. Like,
mm,
there was thoughts of, that bond that Moraine and Lancer will be really important for the end. And it didn't really seem to be at all. It was more
mm.
about, Nynaeve knowing some tell that Moraine has. So I wonder how much of it was that they thought, hey, if these changes lead to something great, it's cool. And then to them, it didn't. I've got some other theories, but just to sit that one there for a moment, any thoughts or reactions to that?
Yeah, that's interesting because I never expected any of that to pay off into anything. I think they really wanted you to invest in those stories on their own right. So like when
Yeah.
people were saying, "Oh, we're justifying this time we're spending with Steppen because we need to know more about the bot." None of that I bought. Like I was like, I don't
Mhm.
think the writers are spending that much time
Mhm.
to set up something in the future. I think they thought everybody would super care about Steppen, and some people
Mhm.
did, but
Yeah.
I don't know if in the broad scheme of things that was all that compelling. And we talked about why we
Mhm.
thought that.
Sure.
I the
I think
same
there's
with
different
the
opinions now where people can look back and now see in the scope of it, was it a worthwhile time
and
investment,
that's
right?
an interesting thing to go like, well, in the future when you're critiquing something, by what measure do
Mhm.
you critique it on? I mean, I don't know if
Yeah.
you should give something leeway just because you think it might pay off
Right.
into something in the future. I think something's got to work on its own. And
Mhm.
then it should be doing both jobs, but it should be working on its own because if it doesn't work on its own, it doesn't matter if it pays off later. You've already
Uh,
lost people if it doesn't
Especially
work
with
on
a
its own.
weekly release. I feel
Yeah.
like you get a little more leeway when they just dump all the episodes. You know what I mean?
Right,
Because then you
right,
can just
right.
immediately watch the next
Which, by
episode. So
the
it's
way, I
not that big a
miss.
deal.
I miss that.
Mm.
What came out recently and just dumped every? Oh, something that my wife watches, Emily in Paris or whatever.
Oh
Like
yeah.
I
Oh
thought they
yeah.
were
I've seen season
done.
one.
Oh, have you? All right, all right.
Yeah, yeah.
She's a fan. Well, I
It
didn't
was a great escape
realize.
during COVID, great scenery,
Yeah, yeah,
etc.
all right. I didn't realize that guy was the original Sex and the City creator, the guy who's the showrunner for
Mm,
that, and like the
yeah.
new Sex and the City, like the guy got passed to is responsible for all the movies and the news
Hmm.
show, which everybody hates. So that's like a whole nother kind of interesting fandom divide. That's like this whole other
Well, in
fandom
release
divide
schedules, yeah.
out over here, the Sex and the City fandom. Um,
I mean, maybe
we
there
gotta
there
do
is
it.
stuff to talk about. I mean, there
We
is
gotta
stuff
do
to
it.
talk about in that new sex. I've seen some of the new Sex and the City, and
uh,
it's whoa, yeah, no, there's some stuff. But anyway, but the point is, in terms of release
we're gonna do
schedules,
it.
I do
We're
think
gonna
that
do it.
does affect the way that you are thinking about writing.
Mm.
And I agree. I think personally, I think the showrunners and writers were glad to only have 8 episodes, so they didn't have to make more stuff up. I
Mm.
think they did. I think they believed, much as you do, that the original plot of the first book is not that compelling. They had
Right.
to make some stuff up, and so one of the things they're like, we're doing deep dive and stepping. Boom, we're
Right.
doing like big Moraine decision about that.
But at the
Like
same time, they
episodes
stuck
5 and 6.
with it. At the same
Yeah.
time, they stuck with it. That's the thing I don't
Mm.
get. Like, if you don't have faith in the end of that
Well,
book, why still basically do it,
right.
but do it in a different way? I don't
So
really get that.
it seemed to me that they really did not care about the hardcore base. And again, I can't even say that, right? Because obviously there's people, we've come up with better names for this in math. People that are fans that wanted to adhere to the
Mm,
content, right?
mm,
It felt like they weren't worried about those because obviously there can be hardcore fans that are still, really enjoying changes.
right, right.
Absolutely. But it seemed like they were just thinking, we're going to lose these people. It felt like they just, wrote those people off. So I agree. I don't know why they thought, to
Yeah.
me, I was excited for this adaptation so they could do something with the end. So they could either move past it quickly and get into book 2 all within season 1, or even as you talked about, jettison that whole part of the Eye of the World.
Mm,
Because I was listening to one, and apparently Robert Jordan, Brandon Sanderson was saying this. Apparently Robert Jordan had planned the first 3 books as one book, but he got
mm.
so far in writing, like it was taking so long, he was like, "Oh, I gotta end this." You know what I mean? And so
I
we
would
get
have
the Eye of
had
the
some
World, where
cut
we get this.
suggestions if he had just
Yeah,
asked me. I could have given him a
right.
list.
Right. You're like, what else could I get?
My
Nope, nope.
abridged. I'm still working on my abridged
We're
for the
keeping everything we've got up until this point, and then they're just shooting off to the eye of the world.
yeah.
So, there's reasons why this ending is considered weaker. So it is baffling
Well,
to a
I heard
degree when this
Daniel
group,
say that Jordan
yeah.
admitted that the first book ending is not very good.
Yeah. Oh, you're saying when, are you talking, you said you heard Brandon say that?
No, I heard Daniel said that in his video, which I don't know what his
Mm.
source was, but I imagine he's very knowledgeable. Um,
Yeah, I would think, I mean, I'm sure Robert Jordan looking back could recognize, I had to just sort of drum up an ending there in moments. I
right.
didn't get to build to it in the way, and it feels that way. Um, so yeah, I'm with you. It's bizarre to me with these writers that it felt like there was almost no respect for adhering to source material to a degree, and then this is what they do. We talked before about kind of the worst of both worlds, right? Like you're not adhering to the stuff we want, but then you are with this. Like why this was the thing you could have changed. It would have been good to change. And yeah, it was moments like Land's little speech to Nynaeve when he gives the whole "I'll hate the man who makes you happy, but love him
Right,
because he
like
does," right?
that.
Like
It didn't make sense.
it doesn't make sense there. Like it feels
you
like that
took,
was them trying
yeah.
to give a nod to the readers, but it's
Mm,
like, but yeah, you can't just move a line. It doesn't work there. Like
yeah. You
already
you already banged her,
progressed in their
dude.
relationship.
Like
Yeah.
it's
What?
really skeezy. It's like, oh,
He's
I am
are you
jealous of the
breaking up
guy.
with me?
I'm jealous of the
Is this a
guy who will
breakup
be.
line?
Oh yeah, what? Yeah, what was happening?
Uh, so
Yeah, so I don't know
so yeah.
what I can't I don't think in their mind they were like we're blowing off the hardcore fans because there's
Mhm.
like enough in here that's imported directly in for like no apparent reason. There's enough like stuff
Oh,
that like doesn't make sense because you're moving it around to fit it in some
mhm.
way. I don't know. We should do some research and get some. It'd be interesting if the showrunner,
Mhm.
addresses fan backlash or I haven't heard anything necessarily about
Yeah.
that, but I don't think they thought, oh, we are blowing off the hardcore fans. I think they thought, like, if we change book one entirely, like, if we jettison this plot, then
Mhm.
they will kill us. They will rise up and murder us in our sleep. And so then they're
I
like, okay,
guess.
how do we possibly make this work in a way that's compelling to
Mm.
non-fans, but without changing the kind of core overall plot line of book
Mhm.
one. And
Mhm.
I think that's what they did. And you know, it might have worked out because I think maybe non-fans are with it, but if they thought they could keep hardcore fans
I
with
feel like they could have
that,
done anything, and in that case, and like up the non-fans,
right, right. So
Yeah.
yeah, it's kind of mystifying to me, but like that's what it feels
Mhm.
like they were doing. And maybe let's just get into like things we like, things we didn't like, because yeah,
Sure.
there's like a lot of things I didn't like,
And
but
we can
things.
only hypothesize so much about them. But yeah, let's get into it, and then I do have some other thoughts about why maybe people didn't like it. But yeah, let's go ahead.
Yeah,
Yeah, feel free to.
core
Which you like, which
things
you didn't.
core things I liked was
Hmm.
basically like the Rand story.
Hmm.
And I like that, although I wish it had been clear from the beginning that the whole point was to seal the Dark One back in using the Dragon Reborn.
Sure.
I think you could have said that episode one, and that would have given us like a point to our quest and like where we're
Hmm.
going instead of again it popping up randomly in the Moraine episode a
Right.
few episodes
Especially because they
back.
had the foreknowledge of what they were doing.
Right, yeah, like
So.
that's clearly why we're doing it, so why not
Mhm.
just kind of say that from the beginning? But and I guess this is the thing I like and I don't like. Like the dark one, I wasn't like super into that performance for some reason. As far as
Mhm.
like a compelling
Because you're going in
villain,
on acting.
yeah. Well, I mean, not that I blame the
Right.
actor. I'm just like the choice in how he's
Mm.
presented. Like I feel like the
Yeah.
compelling villains have been the White Cloak guy and Patton Fane, and I'm loving Patton Fane. Complete
Oh,
switch from the book. He's great.
all
He's
day.
awesome.
Pat and
I'm
Fane.
happy to see more of him in the next
Yeah.
season. This guy, like it just it was interesting, and I think I've seen people like kind of complain about like how the Dark One is presented, And again, I understand why, because his purpose in this story is to be a tempter, not to be so like antagonistic, like outwardly super antagonistic and gloating and kind of just messing with
Right.
you. Like he really needs to be like, look, I'm trying to get you on my side here. So like your villain's
Mhm.
not going to be like cackling fire eye nutso guy the whole time if the
Right.
whole point of the story is to try and tempt this
Mhm.
guy over. But I like tempting the guy over. Like that
Yeah.
gives me a reason to care about this main character, which I never had in the
Mm.
book. It gives the main character a dilemma, a genuinely hard choice,
Choice.
what I thought was set up as a genuinely hard choice. And like
I'd
a
agree.
guy who like where you're like, he maybe could go bad, right? I haven't seen him be this like
Yeah.
paragon of virtue the whole time. So I was like, not that I like believed he was like gonna go for it, but it was enough to give you tension in
Yeah.
the
I
story
thought
and
he
in that
might.
plot.
I mean,
Yeah,
not really, but you know what I mean? Like, obviously not really, but I believed he could have. So
right,
yeah, I'm with
right.
you.
And so like I was very engaged in that. I was very interested in that. Um, I don't know what I feel about the face thing. Was the
Oh,
face
the push
thing?
the eye thing in
Yeah, was
when
that
he pushes
like
the arrow in.
I was like it felt like a dig against someone, but I'm not sure. Like, was that a dig against book fans? Was that like a big F you to book fans?
To take his fire face away when he's like, "This is
Yeah,
better." Can't really have a conversation
right,
with a fire face.
right.
I mean, again, I feel this show
Or,
is more slap fans upside the head
I
than.
mean, that's the
Don't
first
get me
time
wrong.
where I really felt it, where it was like, felt
That's an extreme statement.
combative
That's an
against.
extreme statement. Because obviously I'm not trying to say that it's an easy job to please all these fans. And something I meant to say, and I just want to slip it in here while we're talking about that, their job is not easy, is that especially with this last episode and, the actor who plays Matt gone and them having to adjust for that, COVID conditions, them having to do a lot of like the Trolloc stuff, with CGI instead of costumes. Like, I do get that, COVID had an impact
Hmm,
on this.
hmm.
So their job is not easy to please fans completely, especially with an N that had these other factors. But yeah, that line does seem to be like, are you talking to me? Are you talking to me? Like just
Right,
reading the book with a
right.
fire face dude. Um, I will say for me, just a real quick insert on this is that I thought maybe, and I don't even know if this was their intention or not, but if it was, I thought maybe what they were trying to do with his face and the way it looked was parallel someone who'd been burned out. Because obviously, with the on the
Mm,
other arc we'll end up talking about, we've got the women like burning themselves out as they're fighting the Trollocs. And it doesn't look exactly the same, but I thought maybe there was some overlap there. Like the Dark One was supposed to
interesting.
look like someone who had burned themselves out already, but was still alive, kind of
Mm.
thing. And I thought that conceptually was kind of cool. But again, it's not, I don't quite know if that's what they were going for or
It
not.
was so weird. Why not just have that actor in the other
Mhm.
times we've seen him? Just have
Who
that
knows?
actor with his
Again,
face.
that's the fans. They were trying to give you the burning eyes like the fans want,
Right.
but you didn't give us enough of those scenes like the fans wanted. And then here you just got rid of it right away. As soon as they did it, I was like, of course they did. Of course they just want a
Didn't make any
regular
sense.
guy versus a regular guy. Like, but anyway, go ahead.
Yeah, I think a regular guy does work better in this
Sure.
version of the story, and I like this version
Mhm.
of the story better because it gives Rand actually something to do and something for me to
Gives them a
actually care
choice.
about. Yeah.
Yeah.
And which
Mm-hmm.
makes me care. Which otherwise I don't know. What am I caring about if I'm not caring about
The
this
Green
dilemma?
Man. The
I'm
Green
not
Man,
caring about the
Steve.
Green Man.
The
I'm
real
not.
climax of the book, where Green Man versus AB. Um, so yeah, I mean, conceptually, I agree with you. Like I said, I walked away from the episode and it felt just, and the end to me with Rand felt like, oh yeah, that was an interesting choice. Because I could see the rationale of him wanting that life,
Mm,
obviously, because they've set that up. but then and I like the whole about how she did know his memories and stuff like that. And then the Dark One messes with him by starting to kill her. And he's like, I thought she wasn't real. And, stuff like I enjoyed that. And then the fact that the way Rand knows it's not her is because she doesn't want to be with him in that way. Right.
Yeah.
Now, I've heard some complaints calling this like emasculating that Rand's plot is still about Egwene, right? As opposed to just about him being awesome. But that's just sort of been the themes of the show. I mean, so if that bothers you, I'm surprised that now is the moment when it bothers you as opposed to the
Can you
rest of the
explain
show.
that more about him being off? What is that? Is the
Yeah, so I saw a lot of complaints because again, I was trying to figure out
right?
like what is it that people didn't like. And a lot of people talked about how they really missed seeing Rand go and be the one that saves Tarwin's Gap, right? Where he's the one that like basically shadow steps, like he does a gateway thing and goes
Yeah.
and like does it, and then he climbs and faces the Dark One and stuff like that, right? And they were like, I miss seeing that scene where he, comes into his power and he's doing something awesome and big, and it's him as the dragon. And I do get that idea of him, of the protagonist, wanting to see him do something like cool. Um, but in the book, at least for me as a reader, it's only sort of built up. Like when we've got the prologue, which shows where the dragon can do some crazy stuff, and the actual prologue of the book, where it's, loose there in Telamon, destroying things. And then to see Rand just like destroy a whole army, that is set up to a degree, but it's not really like a decision that's earned. He sort of does it in like this dream, almost foggy state. I'm not saying he's in the dream world; he's just in like a foggy mental state. So that to me wasn't really a big satisfying moment of the ending. But I saw a lot of people that were disappointed that we didn't get to see Rand be a badass at the end.
Y'all, main character being cool is not a story. It's not a story. It's not drama. It's not compelling. It's like
Well, not with these visuals either.
oh
But
well,
sorry, go
I
ahead.
mean, yeah, it's not even gonna look that cool maybe. But like even if it looked great, it's not a story on its own. I think like this is like a lot of times people think they want something like, oh, I just want to see this being cool. It wouldn't I don't know. I don't think you would have liked it. I don't think it would be any more cool or
Yeah,
interesting, you know? Like that's not a story. It's not a story.
yeah.
Cool main character
I
does
think
cool things ultimately doesn't work like in any medium.
I mean, yeah, I feel like I think it depends on the medium, because like, a lot of kung fu movies, that's all it is, just people doing cool stuff sometimes. And at times you're like, yeah, plot, whatever. Like as long as the end
Yeah.
fight looks cool or something, right? To a degree, to a degree.
Yeah.
But I hear what you mean. I think people were dissatisfied and trying to figure out why they were dissatisfied,
Mm-mm-mm.
right? And so they keyed into a change. And I think people were frustrated that, maybe people were, just waiting for Rand to finally be called the dragon and then get to be awesome. But they felt like even his awesome bits were taken away by their characters. And so I think it's people that maybe from the beginning have been frustrated about Rand not getting the spotlight in the way he is because of the mystery box.
Mm-mm.
Now they're seeing that sort of continue to play out in this and not liking it.
Right.
What I think is interesting is this is all what I expected. Like because of the setup, of course they're going to keep dividing things up and making everybody important and so on and so forth. So this to me was not surprising, but I think people were maybe coming to the realization at the end of seeing it all, like I don't like how this was all put together. Maybe not
Yeah.
all, but that nature of it.
Okay. Other
So
thing
I'll just
I liked
go
the
for it.
you mentioned the eyes burning out
Mm,
thing. I was like, oh, that's rad.
mm,
I like
mhm.
I liked how that looked. I like how that
Right?
operated. Now,
Mhm.
I mean, there's something at the end of all that that I hate. Well, here's like
Oh, I know.
let's
I
just
think
go
this is one a lot of people agree
spoilers.
on.
Let's just go
Mhm.
spoilers. Well, I guess we're always spoilers, but like
For the episode? Oh yeah, yeah, we're
leave
fine
her
for the
dead.
episode.
Leave her dead. Come on. Like just own it. Own it. Like if
No,
Nynaeve
I
would have
couldn't
been
do it.
dead and I really didn't believe it because I don't know. I know that she's still in the books and again, I think they
No.
do feel beholden to stuff as much as like it shocks,
Mm.
the hardcore fans. I think they do feel beholden to a lot of stuff and they're trying to navigate
Yeah.
this in this way that they can. But I was like killer, man. That would have like felt like really impactful. This is where I'm like,
Mm.
man, if you can just deviate, oh my god, your story gets so much better. Just deviate, just kill Nynaeve, do it. It would be
I
so
mean, again, I
baller.
think the middle ground is terrible. I would agree. I
Right,
think
right,
we either need to
right,
deviate or we need to stick to the source material and live and breathe in it. This kind of middle ground, no. Or if you want to mostly do one or the other with like bits, and that's what I thought this was going to be. I thought this show, after watching a bit of it, was mainly deviation
right.
with a little bit of going back and honoring. But yeah, it seems like they're going a certain degree. I mean, there's stuff to say about that scene, and then there's another scene that relates. So let me stick with that scene for now. I think most agree that it was just lame. It's just totally lame that Egwene just, with some tears and because she wants to, revives Nynaeve without any trading. And they're definitely just showing. I mean, they're pushing the narrative that who needs a white tower, right? You just want to be able to do stuff with your magic. You can do it. If you're naive and want to heal everybody or stop Machin, or your best friend dies, you can bring him back to life. Or even Rand with Moraine on the walk there, just like you'll just figure it out. Like, there's no training, there's no lessons to be learned in this. This is like the anti-training narrative. So, in that regard, it's completely thematic, of course. Egwene could bring her back because that's just the way magic works
Mm.
in this show. But I think for a lot of people, it was a step too far, and it just seemed unfulfilling. So I
Yeah.
think that's one of the main reasons you're seeing sort of the change in tune from a lot of people about this episode.
But it was just a more entertaining episode, like overall, generally. I mean, I don't think like this is worse than other things
Uh,
that we've seen. I mean, yeah, I was like killer, but I mean, of course they're not going to. And then if you're not going to kill
yeah,
her, why do the little, lame fake out? Like, yeah,
I just think
but
we didn't have as far to fall. You know what I mean? Like, if we're already here
maybe.
about the show, and the show's like, nah. But I do hear you. Like this had
But
more
this is the
happening that
only
seemed to drive the
episode that made
narrative.
me. This is the only episode that made me want to watch more. This is the only
I,
one that has made me go,
don't know what
oh,
to tell
I
you.
maybe it won't be horrible to watch the next season because things
I,
happened I actually cared about in this episode, like, and
I,
there were
it,
cheesy lame things like Nynaeve that have been throughout the whole
yeah,
thing, but this one
that's the thing. It's
counterbalanced it with something that I actually cared about.
I don't disagree with you. Like these things aren't surprising. Like again, the fact that people are now going, "Oh, now I hate it." I'm like, this is the same problem
Mm,
that's been happening the whole way. And I think maybe again, people were just waiting to see. Like maybe it'll all work out. It'll all be worth
mm-hmm.
it. And for them, it's not. And obviously, I don't want to speak as if like everybody hated the last episode. There are people that said I liked it, but I was surprised how much in the minority they were of the comments of the various videos that I watched.
Mm-hmm.
Um, it seemed like they were the most common in the non-book reader videos. And obviously, I'm very interested to hear what the group here has to say, because obviously we've had some people that haven't been liking the show, a lot of people that have been liking it. So I'm curious if, again, the majority are going to be like, no, this was a weak episode. I didn't like this ending. Because yeah, for me, it just was like, whatever. Like I didn't emotionally feel one way or the other. I'm already dead inside when I watch these.
Mm-hmm.
My expectations are very, very minimal. So I'm with you in that like these things that they've done don't feel wildly different from other things that they've done.
Mm-hmm.
So it's interesting to me that now people are like, no, that's not satisfying. So that's why I wanted to do research. I was like, how is this different? Is it just because you're doing the same thing you do with Nynaeve, but now with Egwene, but at the end? Is
Mm-hmm.
that it? Um, Another one I heard. Oh, sorry. I don't know if you finished your likes and dislikes.
No, yeah, I think that was kind of it. Besides that,
Okay.
and like, oh, I liked Patton Fane in it. He was
Right.
also fun, and I
That actor's just
enjoyed
killing it.
he killed it, and I like that they whatever the way they're getting these objects feels like a little bit more interesting or organic. Like that one was hidden in
Yeah.
the in the castle, and then like Patton Fane rolls up and steals it, and I'm like, okay, this feels all pretty cool. I also kind of felt like this one just had more immediacy, or just like more narrative drive to it from start to end. It had an engine
Mm-hmm.
going, that we're under this clock, this army is attacking. It
Sure.
just
Sure.
felt like it clipped along and it had a pace. compared to other episodes where I was just like,
Yeah.
I'm bored watching more step in. I'm bored. This one
But
I
he
was
can
like, okay,
emote
things are
so well.
happening. You're dragging me along. It has
Things
like
are
an
happening.
actual, yeah, it's moving. So those are
Mhm.
all the things that I like really liked.
Cool, cool. And so the main dislike you had was
Oh, okay.
the Gwen
So
thing?
yeah, I mean, definitely Nynaeve coming back was really lame. Um, yeah, I didn't know like what the point with Lan was. Like, oh, she has a tell, and we don't know what that tell
Right.
is. Felt kind of lame.
Hmm.
What else? I know a lot of people like complained about the way the Troggs looked, but I felt like if they really didn't have the budget for them, they didn't cut to them that much where I was
They
like
didn't.
completely thrown out by it. I was like, yeah,
Right.
it's fine. It didn't like make me
Yeah.
gag or something. And I
It
think
was
of
really
the,
dark, so it was hard to
yeah,
see anything anyway. It's like super dark.
yeah, and that was fine. I didn't need to be like wowed by them in
Mm.
this episode. I mean, it would have been nice, I guess, but like I didn't really care that much about that. Was there anything else that I really disliked? That's what I'm saying. Like I mainly liked it. I thought the Nynaeve thing was really
I love
cheesy
it.
and dumb, and that's
Oh,
kind of
this is
about it.
amazing.
Everything else I'm like on board with in this episode.
I
So
I can't say I was expecting this conversation. But
maybe I'll be reminded of some stuff when you talk about more stuff. But like I coming off the top of my head, I'm like, what did I dislike about this? I don't know, not that much.
I don't know. Again, I mean, I think maybe you're following in what we're seeing from the non-book reader camp. Obviously, there can be book readers that liked the episode
Mhm.
completely. Um,
Oh, the
but yeah,
face
it's
thing. The
fast.
face thing was dumb. I didn't like that at all. It should have just been that dude the whole entire
The
show.
whole
Yeah,
time, the
yeah.
whole time, right? Okay, so my other one that I was going to bring up was the other theory that I've heard sort of bandied around
Hmm.
that I'm wondering about is that none of the main characters really did anything at the end. As a reason why people aren't liking this. That just to
Huh?
run through like Lan Lan is just basically searching for Moraine, finds her at the very end.
Okay.
We don't see him fight anybody. Um, Aggie, Agamemnon, he's like dead right away. Nynaeve and Egwene give their power to somebody else, like a tertiary character or secondary character, maybe, to use. So it's not really them doing the action. Um, Matt is of course God, just maybe evil, right? Perrin just sort of stands there while Pat and Fane, makes off with the goods, and so we don't get any like sort of completion of his arc. Um, we just see him sort of continue to struggle with Way of the Leaf or not, right?
Right, right.
Lowell's dead, maybe. Oh, the fan reaction for that, especially stab with the dagger. Like that's you dead, you dead if you're stabbed with that dagger. So,
Wait, which dagger?
but Matt's dagger,
Wait,
the
oh.
Shadow Logoth dagger.
Wait, oh. I
Pat and
didn't.
Fane has it.
Oh.
Yeah,
Oh, okay. Well, that went like completely. Did they do like a close up of that dagger during the
briefly,
thing? Oh.
briefly.
They
Yeah,
they did
yeah.
not hold on that long enough for
They
me to know that.
Yeah, it's just a little getting stabbed. You know what I mean? Is something. But anyways, his character doesn't really. He just gets stabbed. I mean, I
Okay.
suppose he helps Perrin along.
I was about
And
to
then
say that like I
mhm.
didn't believe he was dead because I like didn't
Oh,
believe Nynaeve was dead, and it also was like a weird like
I'm sure he'll be
it
back.
was a weird
Whatever.
like off cam stabbing. Like you know he's right
Right?
there, but like
Yeah.
you don't
You don't
see
see it
it. And
happening.
I am as a comic book reader, I'm highly skeptical of deaths even remotely off screen. I cannot accept them.
Right.
I cannot buy them.
Loyal's really a
So
dark friend. He's just playing this part, right?
yeah, let's do it.
Um,
Let's go way
but
far away from the books, guys. Let's deviate more. More.
and then
Do it,
and then
you
Moraine
cowards.
Range just sort of crouched over, Rand, gives him nothing to work with besides this, like, magic statue, which I know has a name, but if I try to go to any of the actual history of Wheel of Time, none of this stuff that's happening makes any sense. So Moraine doesn't really give him a way to defeat. I think it's, shielded or maybe stilled, we don't know by the end. And then Rand's big thing is that no, one who's willing to give up her life for me isn't the one that I actually love. So the complaint I've heard is that all of that amounts to sort of like a hill of beans where none of the main characters are really doing anything in the last episode.
Okay, let me
So,
respond to that because I think that's
no, please
preposterous. I think that's
go for it.
preposterous. Like,
I'm
the
just
whole
presenting.
thing's about Rand's dilemma and what is Rand going to do and what decision is he going to
Nope.
make. So, that's the core of the
Okay.
episode, and I would say this is the only episode that actually had one of those, like,
Hmm.
really big core decisions that somebody's put into a spot and has to make a
Right.
decision about something. Egg and Nynaeve, okay, they're joining with another person, but it would be lame
Hmm.
if they let it. That would be like awful. And they're
Yeah.
volunteering to do this, so they make a decision that's probably,
As
a
opposed to
life
leaving.
sentence
Yeah.
instead of leaving, and they go and they
Right.
do that. So they did that. Okay, Land
Hmm.
doesn't do anything. Cool, whatever. Not
Right.
everybody can do everything. I don't buy the Perrin one because the Perrin one is directly about that main thing that we've set up for
Yeah.
Perrin, that it's the way of the leaf. He has to make a decision, and like
Yeah.
not confronting him is this like kind of paralysis that he has is the decision that
Hmm.
he makes. He's confronted with the decision, he does make a decision. And sometimes the
Yeah.
decision is not to do anything, but it certainly has consequences. In this
Hmm.
case of him not doing anything, maybe the biggest consequences, they lost the horn
Yeah.
thingy or whatever. So I think
Absolutely.
though that complaint is nonsense kind of across the board. Like everybody is
So,
doing the things that
right.
the plot has brought them to at this moment, and I buy all those things.
So now we get to the real thing. What is the real reason why then people don't like it?
Right.
Right? I still posit that it's because people didn't like where the show was actually going to begin with, and now they're just seeing payouts of things that they thought they would like, but now they're not.
Hmm.
That's what I think mainly, and Egwene healing Nynaeve. But everybody wants Nynaeve to be alive. I think people are just mad for the fake out death, maybe,
Yeah.
and maybe the same for Moraine.
No, I agree with that. If that's our main complaint, that it's like a lame fake out death, yeah, I am 100% on
Mm,
board. That's bad, but like on par of everything that
mm,
happened in the episode, for me, it was like a small like I was like, oh, that's lame, but
mm.
I've liked everything else this episode a lot more than previous episodes.
I will give the showrunners, it does feel like the show builds to this climax for Rance. Like, I
Yeah,
mean, this felt purposeful. Like, I mean,
yeah.
this has been what we've been dealing with, which again is not the same as the book. It's not all about their relationship, of
Mm.
course. Um, but so yeah, no, I'm really interested. If anyone out there did feel that like this was the episode that was the one that tanked the whole season for you, or that you really hate it, I
Yeah,
would love to hear why. Because I'm still working on figuring it out. And I'm still,
right.
there, especially because Steve's like, it's great. For me, it was like, it's the same as the rest, which has been for me. Why this one, right? Um, so yeah, that's so interesting. For me, the two parts that I liked and got hyped for was the first episode. I was like, they're doing it. They're actually doing it. They're doing basically that extra thing that Robert Jordan wrote that I was super stoked to
Mhm.
find out about because of these videos we were doing and me doing research about like, how did Luz Theron decide to go and, this big
Oh
debate that was
yeah.
happening. So I like that we finally saw some of the Ages of Legends because we
Right,
Age
right,
of Legends,
right, right,
which we didn't get to see at the beginning of the story because they were doing the mystery box. Um, and we finally got to see some of it here about this choice in the Dark One's prison. Like you, I wish it had been more specific. Like if it is that the Eye of the World is the Dark One's prison, like that's where they're going to. Um, there's this whole their fan theory about it, which I'll get into, and maybe the reason they
right.
didn't push it that hard, but whatever. I will say the thing that threw me a little bit in the scene was the Tamerlan seat. Seeming to know exactly what was going to happen. Like when she's like, "We'll be here to pick the pieces up." I'm like, that is oddly specific. Exactly what ends up happening. So
Mm.
I'm like, do you have foretelling? But overall, I like that we finally got some of that. I would say the main scenes I've liked in the show have been the scenes that aren't like the traditional narrative plot.
That's
There's
right.
something on the side. And then
Deviate
at the end,
more, y'all. Deviate more.
that's, I don't know if that's what I'm
That's
saying,
the
but
lesson.
and then the very end, if there was anything that would make me watch season two, it's the Sanshin or the Sanshin at the end.
So those are the
This
women that roll up in
army.
the boats or whatever?
Yeah, those are the
Okay.
ones who roll up in the boat. But to me, they just ruin it like they do in this show. with just silly visuals. It was funny. I heard Brandon Sanderson talk about when he was looking at the script for the women's circle, and when they jump off, he's like, "What? Why are they jumping off a cliff?" And Ray was like, "Oh, it looks cool. It looks cool. He needs something visual, you know." And I feel like it's just this again. We're just like, what would be cool? Little girl, huge tidal. Like, why are they setting a huge tidal wave? Like, what does this have to do with anything? Maybe if we had seen a city sitting there that then they were going to invade, sure. But like one little girl, that's just mean. So
Well, dude, they're not. They're
it's
obviously
so
not
weird.
doing it to kill one little girl. What?
I
Sometimes
mean,
with
I
your
hope,
complaints, like I
I
don't
wish it was
understand.
something.
Sometimes, like it feels like you need stuff like you
Hmm?
don't want stuff spoon fed, but then you really need it. Like I just assumed that there's obviously something behind the little girl that they want to destroy. I don't know what that is
I would
yet, but I
hope.
didn't need to be like shown it.
I definitely need to be shown it. Otherwise, it's just ridiculous, which is what it
What?
was to me.
Okay, tell me
So,
down below in
right,
the comments, y'all. Do you
go for it.
not
Go for
just
it.
presume? Like, I think it would be
I mean,
ridiculous if we come back episode one next season and there wasn't
mm,
that thing, right? And this
well, I
is
mean, is yeah, I better do something. Like, it
right.
better hit something, please.
Well, so you know it's hitting.
Uh,
So, I mean, you kind of already
I
know
mean,
that.
but why even show the little girl then? Like, what's the point of that?
Oh, well,
Like, it's just
because
wasted
that's like,
time.
well,
Like,
no,
show
because
me something that would relate to that, so it
no,
means
I
something.
think the little girl gives you the emotional
No.
gut punch of it. If you just show me a random city, you're like, okay,
Show
whatever, they
me,
flooded a random city. If you show me
show
they
me a
like
city on a
killed this
harbor.
kid,
Yeah.
then like you
Show me a
killed a
little
kid.
girl. Show me a little girl playing on a pier of a city, and we're down. And like
All
that's all you had to
right,
do. Very simple. Very simple.
okay. Yeah, let us know in the
Very simple.
comments. I really didn't have that issue at all. I assume they're like fucking wiping
Well,
out something, and I don't need to know right now exactly what they're wiping out. So I don't know. It's an
I
interesting.
mean, I guess if there was some concern that, like, what is it? Like, what's a coastal city that would be a big deal about? So I'd be with you there if we had set up some coastal cities and perhaps we were worried that they were like, I don't know, doing that to the White Tower or something. Sure. And then there would be an advantage in not showing it because now we're wondering. Um, but I didn't feel like they set
Mhm.
that up either. So I agree there's a permutation of it that could have made some sense.
I think it makes fine sense. I don't think there's any
Anyway,
problem with that.
anyway.
So we'll just agree to
So
disagree there, but
that's fine. That's fine. So I was mildly hyped for that. But I mean, there's obviously people already making comments about the costumes and everything, but whatever.
you don't like the
Point is they do
costumes?
well the pacifier thing is like weird to people. But
Hmm.
at any rate, what they do show, which I think is cool, is people controlling people who can channel. And so I think
Mm-hmm.
that's neat and gives a little taste of what's in store.
Yeah.
So that's cool. That's cool. For me, other than that, like I said, I did actually think the way I mean, I wasn't super into the Rand dream sequence choice just because I feel like they're using something up they might need later. Um, and so I'm like, oh, it's here. So that to me was a little distracting. But overall, I'm with you. I feel it was set up, but of course, this is his arc. Um, and he had a choice. It was realistic that he wanted to pull the other way, so I was okay with that. Like I said, I thought maybe the burning was cool. That his face as the dark one was maybe burned out. And that was it. The rest was just kind of just all sort of happened to me. Um, I think the last sort of theory that I'm going to get into is the coolness, right? Or the way things looked, right? So I've heard people bash, CGI, which, again, understand with COVID and stuff. I've heard people complain about the way things were fought, that if these five women decimate the whole army, why aren't they out in front of the wall, right, that Agamemnon dies in, or why isn't it that they're doing it from there? So I think the way the battle is fought feels unrealistic to people. And so there is that, and there are a lot more battles to come. Like there's a lot in this, and this is why, as I've said before, I really do think these types of shows should just be animated. This is my like final takeaway personally, is that I would never tell someone to watch the show because it looks awesome. Like, yeah, there was some cool stuff with like a Trolloc here or there early on, and so good scenery, like the where they're doing these shots, cool. But I would never say that. And the fight scene in the last episode, it goes over the top, as we've said. But I thought there were some cool moments to it for sure. But overall, the visuals aren't why I would, get someone to do it. And it did feel as if they were constrained by a lot of those visuals and the choices that they made. Like, did they just not have the money for a Green Man? You know what I'm saying? Did they not have the money for a, Forsaken battle at the end? This seems like it's a
But
lot
like
easier
they
to
no,
shoot.
they just chose not to do those plot points because
Maybe,
those plot points are nonsense.
maybe.
I am
But I'm just saying,
positive because
just
like
from a
if
money
your end
perspective,
is a
it's cheaper to
random
have him hold a baby, right? But go ahead.
if your climax of this television show was a random green man shows up that we've never met before and fights two random dudes that we've never met
Oh, it would have
before,
been
that
awesome.
would be awful. That's
It's
awful.
awesome.
It's
Would have at
bad.
least looked
It's
cool.
really
Well,
bad.
it could have looked cool if it was animated. So that's
Well,
all I'm
I
saying.
mean, even if it
Right.
looked cool, like let's say you have all the
Mm,
money in the world, it looks like Lord of the Rings. You have random green dude who you haven't met the
I
whole
mean,
story fight random dudes who you haven't met the whole story. It's not good. It's random. It's like there's no
yeah,
reason for me to care about that because I don't know any of
but it
these
looks
people.
cool. It looks cool. So,
That is not
but anyway,
enough. There's a lot of very
I'm
good
not. I'm not
looking,
saying that's.
horrible stuff out
I'm
there.
not saying this whole thing. I'm simply saying that I'm sure that money affected some of their decisions as to what they did, right? Just like Game of Thrones was affected by, that and how often they get you giants and direwolves and stuff. And I think there's this fallacy that because Game of Thrones worked, other big fantasy shows can work in this live action environment. There was so much money poured into this, so much money. And people are complaining a lot about the visuals of it. So I just would hope it's not going to happen, but I would hope people would learn that at least at this stage, for a fantasy show that's like high fantasy that has a lot of magic, a lot of creatures, you're better served to just go animation. It opens the door to let you do things you otherwise can't.
I'm gonna push back
So
on this
yeah,
because
go
like
for it.
you can again change Wheel of Time a lot more where like you
Yeah,
make it into a budget place that you want it to be. Again, I think the problem is that they're not willing to change it enough. I really do feel that way, and I know that's anathema
maybe.
to all the hardcore fans out there. But you
No,
can,
I'd rather they go full than these weird half things, lines of
yeah,
land that don't make
yeah.
sense where they're placed. Like, if they had just actually done a new turning of the wheel, fine. Like, if that's
Mm.
really what they had done, it would have been better to me.
I
But
think you
please,
can
go ahead.
still say it's ran, egg,
Right.
whatever, and but then just really change it. And you're right, change it in a way that you're taking your budget into account. You're thinking about like
Mm,
what will look good, what will not, and then just
mm,
let yourself be free, y'all, to make a story where you can, yeah, solidly make it
mm,
look good all the way throughout. I feel like they
mm.
don't feel like they can do that. And
Yeah,
again, as much as the fans are all complaining, I think what they're really hemmed in by is the sense that they gotta stick to like whatever happened in book one. We have the beginning, we have
mm,
the end. I bet the next season is whatever happens in book two. We gotta start at the beginning, we gotta go to the
eek.
ends, and like I think it's like not probably not the best
Mm.
idea way to go about it. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe they start deviating after this, but I would have
Maybe.
expected them to deviate a lot more from this ending. Now, maybe also they were like, oh, wait, we have an idea for this ending. Because
Mm.
I think like the Rand being given that choice and having to make that decision was like, oh,
Which
this
is a
is.
big deviation,
It is a big
just by the way.
deviation,
Yeah.
but I see it as them thinking this is how we make this weird plot of book one like actually a story
No
is we do
energy
this.
tubes. No, they get cut.
No, what gets cut?
I said no energy tubes of power that are connected to the base of these people. in the book
Oh,
that he fights the
the
dragon.
right.
Yeah.
What did he call them? The threads or
Oh,
something, not the
it's like
tubes.
what was it? I forget what the name of the tube was. But yeah. But anyway, yeah. I hear you. I hear what you're saying. Like this is a divergence, but they're trying to make a quasi similar thing happen in the same place.
Right, right. And
Right.
like this is their idea for how to make it into a
Mm.
story with like stakes and character decision at the end. And
And
like
people don't want that. No, I'm joking.
yeah, maybe they don't. I just I don't know. It's so
Mm.
it is just it's a riddle wrapped in a conundrum, wrapped in an enigma. Like,
So crazy.
what do you do? And I'm on record. I would have changed it massively, but like
Mm.
I feel like this is what they're gonna do the whole time. That they're gonna go like, okay, we're gonna keep the basic structure of these things, but we're
Yeah,
going to mix things
maybe.
around and try to figure out our way to make this work visually, because that's what people
Mm.
want. Like they want the basic structure of it, but we also want it to work as
Mm.
this show and hold on to non-readers' attention. And because we want both of
Mm.
those things, that's sort of the prison that we've built for ourselves. Whereas if they just let themselves go a lot more, I mean,
Mm.
maybe it's just a fallacy at this point to go like, oh, we try to keep the hardcore fans. Like maybe at this point you just go,
They've
no,
lost.
don't worry
They're
about that,
gone.
because you
Yeah,
were
I mean
never going to
they're hate
keep
watching the
them.
show.
You were
Right,
never
right.
going to
The
keep
people
them.
that
So
want it to
why
be the
bend over
same.
backwards to
Yeah.
do that? You know?
Well, what I think is interesting is that this episode seemed to hit that way for more people. Like people that had previously been okay with changes, now we're not. And that's what I think is the fascinating shift that's taken place. Um, so I agree that I don't think the show is going to last with this approach
Oh,
that they're
I
using,
mean, I don't know,
uh,
because like if this
where
is
they're in this
keeping
prison.
if this is keeping the not I keep seeing like this is like, and I don't know where these metrics come from. This is the
Oh, like the
highest
top prime
rated top
show and
prime
stuff.
show, blah
Yeah,
blah
yeah, yeah.
blah. And like I'm not
Mhm.
taking in that much media about it. Probably mostly videos I watch are
Right,
people who are like super committed to the
right.
books. And I'm
Mhm.
not watching the people who have never read the books as much. And like so I don't
Mhm.
know. I'm not ready to make this doom and gloom prediction that this is going to
Oh,
fail. I don't know that it is.
no, no, I here's what I think. It's definitely gotten watched for sure, right? But I do think a lot of that is people hate watching or watching to talk about it or because it's this big event. Um,
I think
but
that's the very small
Mhm.
YouTube community. I think like the slice that we're looking at, like
Mm,
the major
yeah,
massive audience, if they don't like it, they're not going to watch it. Like the major
yeah.
normie audience, which is going to dwarf any fan audience. If they don't like it, they're not going to watch it anymore.
It's tricky, right? Because I can totally see people who are frustrated now saying, this is the worst episode, in a year when it comes out again, going, I kind of remember being annoyed at the end, but I'll give it a shot.
Mm.
So it really depends how mad people were at this end, how little trust they now have in it. Um, I'm really going to be fascinated to see how it shakes out. Whether I keep watching it or not. I will be curious to see how many seasons is this going to go for. How long can they walk this line that seems to be disappointing a decent number of people more now than before? Before it just seemed to be like the people that wanted it to be exactly like the books, and we talked about that a while ago. And now it seems like a new group is frustrated. So I'm curious, will that new group stay frustrated? Will they watch? Um, so I do think at this current trajectory, it's worse than I thought it would end up being. Meaning from the beginning, I was like, this is not going to do well. Then we saw a lot of people liking it. I was like, maybe it will. And now we're seeing people not. So I'm like, maybe it won't. So I don't know. But I just don't know if they're going to end up appealing to enough people because even if you are a regular just watcher, I don't think the show looks that cool. I think despite the things I've said about acting, I think the acting is some of the best part of what the show has going for it. Um, so unless they really step up their visuals, step up their action, um, I don't know how compelling this is going to be for all of those other people that are watching it. And then we've also got to see what other shows are out by then, like the Game of Thrones sequel, Lord of the Rings. This sort of ran unopposed. Like there's The Witcher 2, right? That if you want to watch something fantasy, but I mean, that's only two shows to watch. So it's not that many. Whereas if there's more in a year, then I could see the show struggling some if people are like, well, I got a bad memory of season one and I really want to watch Lord of the Rings or something like that.
Yeah, I think like ultimately this is not entering the zeitgeist right now, right? Like it's not
Mm.
Squid Game. It's not like something where people are talking about it on Twitter or it's breaking through to like a really
Right.
super wide audience. As far as how it's doing, I mean it's kind I find all these like streaming service things very confusing and kind of hard to
Right?
understand how
How
their
do you decide
numbers
what a
work.
success is?
Like for
Yeah.
example, I just finally found out there is a place where you can look up like the Netflix numbers
Mm.
on things, and like as far as like looking at like I was shocked. I sent you an email. I was shocked to see that like Lost in Space is like one of their
Right.
like top things. And actually, I like watched it because I was like so shocked about it, and I
Mm.
did enjoy like the first couple episodes of
Mm.
Lost in Space. I guess I'll probably keep watching it, but
Okay.
I actually was like, oh yeah, this is pretty fun, and I like have
Hmm.
reasons to care about the characters. Like it's got this very kind of classic boy and his robot sort of Iron Giant type like
Hmm.
dynamic that's going where you like care about the robot and you care
Mm.
about the
That sounds
boy and
nice.
like you want to like know what's going to happen. There's a conflict set up with that relationship, you
Hmm.
know, where you're like, okay, this has got me emotionally invested more so than Wheel of Time has had me emotionally invested. So I was like, okay, I think I
Yeah.
get why people like this, but I hadn't like it was barely registered on my brain that this was even a thing. Like I sort of
Mm.
remembered back when season one came out. I was
Right.
like, oh yeah, that was an old television show. They're doing the
Love to see how they
remake the
promote
old
this.
television show,
Yeah.
and so it was big and like the other thing I was seeing was like maybe we should talk about at some point, but the Cowboy
Mm.
Bebop show, when you look at like the numbers that was on like the Netflix thing, it was pretty comparable to like the other
Mm.
things that were in it, and it wasn't in the top 10 for that long, but a lot of other things aren't in the top 10 that long that kept going, and I
Mm.
was like, oh, but this was an abject failure that like gets canceled right away, and I was like, and I know a lot
Right.
of people have
Well, I'm
issues
wondering,
with that.
do they not want the bad press is what I'm wondering,
I
so
can't
that's why
imagine
I'm fascinated
if you
by
get the
what's gonna happen with Wheel of
viewers.
Time,
I think you would like no press is bad press. If you have the viewers,
right?
then you would keep it going. You know, so like
That's what I'm thinking.
it all
And
feels
so,
very opaque to me. But I can't see this being anything more than niche. But I guess I don't know how to like even define niche anymore or what's like success in niche.
well, especially with streaming platforms,
Yeah.
because I agree, like they're happy right now, I imagine, that it's gotten this many views, right? But I can't imagine they're happy with the star rating, which is still that, or the reaction that some people are at least giving for this last episode. Is it enough to change showrunners? Who's to say? I do wonder how closely Amazon is watching these comments. Like, yeah, they clearly got the views that they wanted, but how closely are they watching these reactions? And as we've been talking about, what subset of reactions are really represented by the information we have? Are there tons of, non-McGreeters or anybody who really love the show and can't wait for the next season? So I'm fascinated, as I've said a couple times now, for season two to see what that makes happen because season two is already confirmed, so it's going to take place. I'd be surprised. I don't think they're going to pull it, but I do wonder if some of the initial numbers of season two will affect if they pull season three. So we'll see. Obviously, I'm curious to hear from all of you about your thoughts, but I just have one last fan theory that I got to say, just super quick, just so we're hitting it. One cool thing that might be true of this last episode, which I've heard some people say, is that you've got the Dark One sort of smirking at the end,
Oh yeah, I like that.
and
That
then
was
you've
another thing on my list of likes that I should have
right.
said. I like that. I like that little smile he
So
gives.
so you got the smirk at the end, right? Which then leads into the broken seal at the bottom,
Mm.
and then them talking about how it's made of the stone that
Right,
can't be
right, right.
broken. And that could, I don't want to give spoilers for future books, but that could tie into a larger plot point. And maybe this whole thing that the Dark One did was just to, I mean, I guess it's a win-win for the Dark One, right? On the one hand, if you accept, now you're my pawn. And if you don't, you destroy a seal, which helps me.
Mm.
So, and in that way, I do think that is a fun potential way that this could go. And I
Mm.
just want to put that fan theory out there because I didn't really notice the smirk when I first watched it,
Oh, you didn't?
but I would agree that it's a like for me
Yeah.
as well.
Yeah, I like
Yeah,
that as well. All right, everybody. Well, so first of all, please let us know down in the comments what you
yeah.
think. Am I crazy for thinking
Is this
this
the
was the
best
best
episode?
episode? Tell me how crazy I am. Tell me how
Oh
absolutely
my
insane I
goodness.
am. And jam on that subscribe button. And we are going to be taking a little break next week for the new year
Food
because
break.
Jeff is going to go
Mhm.
party it up. I'm guessing you're just going to like tear up the
I think I'll be
town.
playing lots of. I think I'll be lots of board games
Okay, yeah,
that
that's
I'll be
your
doing.
version of tearing up the town
My
is
version of tearing it up
yeah.
with you is lots of board games.
So we're gonna be taking a
Board
little
games.
break, but
Mhm.
hopefully when we come back, we're gonna be looking at some non-wheel of time. What?
Yeah,
Non-wheel of
how could we
time
not do Wheel
things?
of Time? But
I know
yeah.
up on the docket we want to look at Invincible, which is more in the
Mhm.
comic book realm, so a little bit more of
Yes.
maybe my realm, and I will be shepherding
Hmm.
Jeff through the comic
Which I
book
look forward
realm.
to.
So looking at Invincible comic versus show,
Right.
and we're excited to
Right.
do that.
I really am because I've seen Invincible. Spoilers. Love the show. Loved it. And started reading the comic and was blown away because it was completely different. And I was like, this was, I mentioned this before in some of our early videos that I was, complaining about Wheel of Time being different. But then over here with Invincible, I'm like, well, I liked it. So I think it is a really neat counterpoint because it's also an adaptation that's not the same,
Yeah.
at least in certain ways. But my question to you all is twofold. Number one, are you going to keep watching this
Mm.
show? Are you going to keep watching Wheel of Time like excitedly? Are you going to watch Wheel of Time hoping that it changes to get better? Are you done with it? Are you going to keep watching? And then perhaps the more important question, do you think all fantasy shows until we have better technology should just be animated? Be honest. I want to hear. Thanks everybody. We look forward to seeing you in the new year.
Bye, everybody.